Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, I'm happy to introduce Susan Masino. Susan A. Masino, PhD, is the Paul E. Rather Distinguished Professor of Applied Science at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Her research focuses on brain health and disease, the power of natural processes, and science-based, compassionate, and common-sense strategies for local and global well-being. Dr. Masino serves on her local open space committee, is president of the Simsbury Grange, and is county coordinator for the Old Growth Forest Network. She is on the boards of Ayton Forest, Pinchot Institute for Conservation, and Wellspring Common Stewards. In 2024, Dr. Masino became a certified guide with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for this wonderful conference and invitation. I didn't realize there'd be that long introduction, so I put on my first slide just a few of the different things that I do and am involved in. I'm a tenured professor at Trinity College, so that's my main job, and I'm grateful for that job. It gives me a lot of intellectual and academic freedom, and all of these other roles are all volunteer roles that I've done, among other things that Sarah mentioned. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is sort of a kind of local and global perspective of why we need wildlands, and particularly why our brains need wildlands for local and global well-being. And through all the different perspectives that I have, through the work that I've done in my community and in the academic community and in various kind of policy groups and things like that, I've really boiled my life down to exactly two things. So in a way, I'm a boring person to talk to. But one, we need nature. It's not optional. And two, we need healthy brains to be all that we can be and to take care of our lifeline, which is the nature. So I think I have and I really was just relentlessly devoted to brain health and my neuroscience for many years, and novel ideas about brain metabolism and signaling and things I'm not going to talk about today. But I think as a neuroscientist, I have a really clear understanding that I'm not going to understand the brain within my lifetime. And I actually have come to understand that we don't even understand a single cell, literally, not one cell. So that's what evolution in biology is. It's complicated metabolism and signaling and parts and all kinds of molecules. And all of those things make up our minds, which make life wonderful. So with that background of knowing that I've been working in this really complex, resilient, dynamic system, and then realizing that everything really depends on nature, and I started to really understand forest ecology and forest ecosystems. And a forest ecosystem is more complicated than a human brain. The genetics, the epigenetics, the number of parts and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important, and this was mentioned at the kind of young professional panel yesterday, it's important to admit what we don't know. And there's been almost a loss of an appreciation of the mystery of life, and appreciating that, I guess. Anyway, we need wildlands as places for nature to continue to adapt and evolve in its way. And we don't need them everywhere, but we need them in some places. And this is kind of the foundation of our future. And I think the elephant in the room, and I may talk to you about a few elephants, is that we're not really deciding where they should be and why. We keep on saying, well, we'll have a percentage, or we'll have this or that. Where are they? And I appreciate that a lot of people have talked about place-based, the importance of place. And my brain needs a place. Your brain needs a place. And wildlands need a place too. Oops. So I don't have my thinking in kind of, we have wild forests and managed forests. I sort of conceptually think about our landscape as three buckets. And we need to decide what we're doing, where and why, etc. And those three buckets, when I think about them, are nature, research, and resources. And all of these things are important. We have houses, we need roads, we need farming, we need forest resources. We need research to understand the world around us and what we're doing. And then we need natural areas. So these things are all sort of working together. And I appreciate the Wildlands in New England report for defining what these wildlands are, what are natural areas. And it's really important to use specific words to mean specific things. And I could give examples of that, but I want to stay on time. And these categories are actually overlapping somewhat. So wildlands are actually, control groups for what we're doing with forest research. Some of the manipulations that, forgot your first name. Eitan was talking about, we need control groups for what we're doing on the landscape. We need research into how we're getting resources. And the principles that we need to talk about are what are the areas that are really kind of our essential lifeline of evolved land and water, where we should first do no harm. How are we collecting data and establishing baselines and protocols and gaining knowledge, and how we can really be wise about what we're doing, and how we can have principles that adopt kind of, I think a New England waste not, want not attitude. And so I think it's important to understand that nature-based solutions, which we always talk about, rely on observing and understanding nature. And if we don't protect nature going forward, I don't know what our nature-based solutions will be based on. So back to the brains. Einstein actually had an incredibly normal-looking brain, and the thing that was unusual about it was he had many more glial cells than a normal brain. And I grew up in neuroscience thinking that the neurons were the really important thing, all the little synapses and neurotransmitters. Well, I actually don't think that's as important anymore. I think it's the metabolism and the glial support network that's really critical. And it's kind of a bummer because you thought you were doing something and then you're like, oh, this other thing. So I've had a number of sort of conceptual things in my career that I've had to grapple with. And I think right now we're in a situation where the burden of proof is a little bit upside down, that you have to prove something is a problem in order to just not cause a problem. I'm not explaining that very well right now, but I think, as someone who's gotten into understanding what we're doing with our forests, it's almost like the burden is to prove that nature is going to be okay. The conversation is like, what kind of management are we going to do where? Without saying, oh, well, the default should be a natural area. And I think we're not properly kind of thinking about all the side effects of what we're doing, which is hard because we're working in a system that we don't understand. But in medicine, we really try, and I am from a biomedical training, we really try and consider all the side effects of what we're doing, long-term and short-term. So, this is my final PSA about the roadless area, due 11:59 tonight. I found you can easily Google roadless rule and standing trees and sign. Do you have a few more hours? So back to the brains, and I really want to talk about our individual brains for a minute, and then we'll get back to the big picture. We have a mental health crisis. People are talking about it all the time. It's known that time in nature will prevent depression. It will lower your blood pressure. It will lower your stress hormones. It helps your memory. It helps cognition. There is a big list. I have a book. I'm not going to grab it right now. Just came out. I think Environment in the Mind. It gives a great overview of all of these things. But I want to talk about some of the things that aren't as often talked about, like depression and anxiety, etc. And talk about loneliness and solace and recovery. And, this is a literature now, but a lot of this is common sense. A lot of what we're talking about at this conference is common sense. We need areas for nature. Where are they going to be? Cultures throughout the world have used forests in particular as places for solace. And Jerry Franklin said he thought of the trees as his friends. And this is a powerful opportunity to give people a place they can love and connect with as a mitigation of the mental health crisis, the loneliness crisis. And I have an article from 2006 in the paper in Springfield, Massachusetts that said, losing an old forest is like losing a friend. Recovery from trauma, from addiction, from so many things. People need a place to count on to help them recover from things. And it's almost a metaphor, really, for our forests in New England. They're recovering, and they can help us to recover. The mental health crisis affects all ages, but it's really not. It's bad in young people. I work with young people all the time. The anxiety levels are palpable. And, the problem is what we keep on talking about is more and more services to address the mental health crisis. We're not talking about how to prevent the mental health crisis. And this is emblematic of how we think in many kinds of systems, and problematic not doing a root cause analysis, but just patching things. And the problem is there are not enough services and professionals to deal with the mental health crisis. So our solution is going to be AI. So you would give your child a computer to talk to help them with their mental health crisis. In the meantime, time in nature growing up has enormous lifelong benefits. So in terms of the lower half of the slide, it's talking about growing up in nature and mindfulness as an adult. And the conclusion is that exposure to nature as a child results in increased mindfulness as an adult. Mindfulness is itself like an inoculation against mental illness. What other things do we have that can provide a lifelong kind of platform for mental health? This other paper talks about what are different types of natural environments and what are their benefits for children. It was done in the UK. A lot of this work is done not in the US, but in the UK they looked at about 3,500 young teenagers, preteens, and they looked at different environments. They looked at green space and blue space, and within green space they looked at grasslands or a park or woodlands or a forest. I'm not saying it was a wildland, but it was at least a place with trees. And they found that specific to the woodlands, not the grasslands, was associated with better cognitive development and a lower risk of emotional and behavioral problems. This is powerful stuff because once you start down a path of mental illness, it's hard to recover. So I'm going to talk about more positive things for a minute, like awe and wonder and hope and compassion and altruism. We know, it's in the literature, there's a big literature about awe and beauty and all of these things. And awe, which is found in nature, it promotes compassion and altruism and cooperation and all of the things we need to do to make the decisions that we need to make and help each other going forward. There's also beauty and creativity and complexity in nature. And without the kind of inspiration and aspiration, where are we really going as a species? And I want to acknowledge Joan. She's not here, but she did a paper on beauty showing that people think that old forests are more beautiful. Awe is helpful for people, everyone, but it's particularly powerful in vulnerable populations, so teenagers, at-risk teens, veterans, etc. I want to just get back to kind of little tiny things like molecules and medicines, which have been found in forests historically. Trees that we were throwing in the trash for years ended up being the source of a powerful cancer-fighting drug. And if we think about what we're doing, And actually what's happened in medicine is we realize we have a whole microbiome. We have more non-human cells in our body than we have human cells. And we don't understand the microbiome of the earth. And this is a really serious issue. And I just want to show you the planetary limits kind of slide from the Stockholm Resilience Center, where they've been tracking 9 major kind of markers for tipping points for a number of years. This is the most recent one in 2023. And I want to point out that this is the green safe zone here in the center, and these are all of the things that we're kind of passing the critical point. And I want to point out that the most serious boundary violations are all biological. And we're not really talking about this while we focus all of our climate change policies on atmospheric carbon dioxide. Look at that. That's not nearly as bad as our functional and genetic integrity, our biogeochemical cycles. That's the metabolism of the earth. And the statement that stopped me short a few years ago was this one from Anastasia Makarieva. The biosphere is divided between natural ecosystems that work for stability and disturbed ecosystems that cannot do that work. So her point is that we need to protect any ecosystems, any pieces that are still working to stabilize life on Earth, because the biota is a buffer system that is basically creating a habitable planet for all of us. I'm just going to skip to, I want to give a shout out to her Substack. She writes a lot of thoughtful stuff about science, you know, what's going right with science, what's broken, what is the biotic regulation of climate. Very well written, great stuff. And I want to say that through this work, I've been collaborating with and talking to scientists of all different disciplines who all know that we need to protect natural areas. It's not optional. There's no evidence that it's not optional. We shouldn't have to prove that we need natural areas to survive on Earth, which those natural areas are what brought us here. And so that's an example of consilience, and which is the jumping together of knowledge, and we shouldn't ignore that. So ultimately, life on Earth depends on life on Earth, and I just want to show you, we haven't talked a lot about southern New England, but you can see the wildlands in southern New England are very sparse. How are people going to find a place to connect to when there are no places that they can count on? This is some of the most densely populated area in the country. And I'll show you the really bad news is that if you just look at Connecticut, and these pieces are color-coded to indicate whether they have kind of wildlands that are color-coded for strong or weak protection. Most of the protection we have for any wildlands in Connecticut is considered weak protection that is a pen swipe that could be reversed, or a management plan that could be rewritten, or whatever. And if we remove the areas that have weak protection, this is what Connecticut looks like. So it's the same for Rhode Island, and it is the same for Massachusetts. This is not okay, and no one is working to solve it. So with that, I'd like to say that in addition to advocating for the roadless rule and any legislation that promotes wildlands, I'm going to be working on a plan for new national parks, including in New England. I'm honored to be working with Restore the North Woods on that, and I think that'll be aspirational, a great goal for America's 250th. And I want everyone to regain your brain, regain your critical thinking. We need everyone to kind of think about things and advocate. Do not leave this to the experts, because they don't know everything either. And this is the foundation of our future. This is essential, and our best future depends on our brain health. Thank you so much.
you.